Hello, you're listening to the Punk Rock Libertarians podcast, episode 114. I am Matt Bergman. I'm here tonight with Jared Schneiderman.
Yo, what's going on?
And Alex Miller.
How's it going, guys?
Hey. So, we had the whole Comey thing this week.
We did have the whole Comey thing this week.
Was it as huge as it was supposed to be?
I mean, if you ask any of the people on the left...
Is Trump going to be impeached next week?
Yeah, I don't know about all that. I mean, I didn't really learn anything new from it, aside from... I mean, it kind of confirmed some things that had already been said by Comey, or at least from, if we take him at his word. So, like, Trump asked him for his loyalty, kind of insinuating that, like a kind of a mobster thing, it seemed.
Didn't he give him, a task? He gave him, some task that, I guess, messed with his internal ethical compass.
Well, he told him to drop... So he never told him to drop the Russia investigation, or at least Trump's ties to Russia. However, he did tell him to drop the Michael Flynn investigation.
That's right.
And then also it came out that Comey was one who was investigating Hillary Clinton's email fiasco originally. And so it came out that he was pressured by the fact that the Attorney General at the time, Lynch, met with Bill Clinton on the tarmac to basically end the investigation against Hillary. Or, he said it in some sort of legalistic terms, but basically, because that was sort of inappropriate, he felt that he couldn't pursue the investigation the way that he wanted, or something to that degree.
Gotcha. Okay.
Which isn't surprising that there's some fuckery going on with Hillary Clinton and the Attorney General.
No, I'm shocked. I can't imagine.
Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, what does this mean? You would think that, every week is a new week where Trump is going to get impeached. However, This doesn't appear to have happened yet. So, from the left, I mean that from the vantage point of the left, you would think that, he's definitely getting impeached this week. But at the same time,
I don't know, man. My parents are moderate Republicans, and they're surprised. They're like, every week, they're like, he's going to get impeached. There's no way it'll last 4 years.
Right. But, I mean, you got to take into account that it needs to be in the best interests of Congress to impeach him.
Makes sense.
I also learned something. Apparently, you can't be charged with a federal crime while you're a sitting president.
Of course you can. That's just for the peasants.
Because I think the reasoning behind that is you could theoretically pardon yourself as president, so they have to impeach you first and then pursue the criminal charges. So basically, I mean, obviously there's multiple scenarios that could take place that would involve him getting impeached. So then it came out. So right after the Comey thing, then Trump's lawyer came out and gave his sort of side of the story. And so apparently Trump denies that he asked Comey for loyalty. And then he also denies that he asked that Trump asked Comey to drop the Lynch, or not the Lynch, god damn it, all these fucking names, the Flynn investigation. Right. So that happened, and then somebody in the press asked Trump if he would go under oath and say the same thing and deny the charges, and he said that 100% he would. So basically, if he's full of shit, which he probably is, and he gets put under oath, and then he lies under oath, then we've got a whole Bill Clinton scenario. Right. So that's one route that seems probably the most likely out of any scenario that I can see right now.
I mean, I guess let the circus continue, right?
Yeah, I mean, so I guess that raises our sort of next topic, which is, would we want him to get impeached? Would we want Trump to get impeached? Which would mean, unless Pence gets tied in, which there was sort of hints of that in the testimony, where Pence might have been doing some wrongdoing.
And then so it would go to Paul Ryan?
Yeah. So who would you rather have? Trump Pence
Trump,
or Paul Ryan.
like Trump out of all those people.
So why?
Why?
Yeah.
You know,
Doesn't Paul Ryan? Sorry, go ahead.
I don't know. I know Paul
Come on,
Ryan.
you know.
It's like I know Paul Ryan's terrible. I mean, it's basically, dude, I hate the state, and ultimately, Trump is like, in a lot of ways, he's like a fork in the wheel of the establishment.
But is he?
Yes, they totally hate him, dude.
Yeah,
Some of the
sure.
establishment does, yeah. I'll give you that.
I mean, he wasn't even popular with the Republican base, you know.
Well, the base he was popular with, the establishment Republicans.
Well, yeah,
he wasn't.
not the establishment. Yeah, totally.
yeah.
So
No, I mean, that's fair. Here, you answer, because I need to share this shit on Facebook. I'm talking to you, Alex. Come on.
But I would think you would need a little bit more than just the the mainstream doesn't like him. Like, you know, that it could be a good thing. It also could be a red flag. I feel like that you need to be for something. I don't know. And yeah, but again, Pence is pretty scary too. So this whole week, I was just keeping an eye on the headlines. I didn't just to see if they were as explosive as everyone was expecting, and they seemed relatively tame. So I didn't go too much into it. But yeah, I couldn't decide who was worse. That was that's what I spent my time doing.
I don't know,
wondering which was worse.
Well, here's my theory on it, and that's all right. So right now, as we mentioned before, Trump is literally in the headlines pretty much every day. Right. You know, everything he does, whether it's, you know, getting 2 scoops of ice cream or like fucking up with NATO or whatever it is, like it's all getting covered. He's not very good at being, and I mean, half of it is he's covering it himself by just tweeting about it.
Right.
So, I mean, he's not very good at being discreet. He's not good at doing things under the radar. Whereas I feel like, I mean, regardless of how bad Trump's policies are, I don't think Mike Pence's policies would be any better, if not worse. And Pence at least has, or not at least, but he has the political experience to know how to do these things sort of under the radar, you know, and he can,
or at least,
you know,
to be
he
more
knows
effective in executing than Trump.
more effective in getting these policies passed. Whether it's, you know, he'd probably be better at working with Congress. He'd probably be better, you know, shaking, you know, what do they call it, greasing the right palms. So I'm more afraid of an effective president than I am of an ineffective president. You know, the only thing that would be maybe the deciding factor against Trump would be if he just went off the rails and decided to just nuke somebody, which I don't think Pence or Paul Ryan would do. Right. So that's sort of the one.
Like, I think Pence seems about as like militarily awful as you could get.
Well, militarily awful. I'm just talking specifically about nukes.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's all speculation at this point, but.
And if we're also comparing Paul Ryan, so I haven't paid attention to him for a long time, and most of what I hear is pretty terrible. But I also seem to recall, didn't at least back in the day he have an okay track with like local civil liberties issues, like maybe a few redeeming things, like almost so much how Rand Paul, you know, he's made a few causes, but.
Oh, really? I was not aware of that. The only thing I've heard is the whole thing about like the gay like shock treatment or whatever, which apparently that's somewhat overblown as far as like his role with that.
But he had any role with it.
Yeah, yeah. So
okay,
but yeah, I mean he's a religious theocrat, and that scares me more than almost as much as just a straight up neocon.
You know,
because I think he's just a neocon theocrat. So.
And you know, as someone watching Handmaid's Tale right now, yeah, that's a scary thing.
Yeah, I've heard that's really good, man.
It's decent. I would recommend it.
Yeah.
Oh, my wife and I, we read the books. There's only one book, Handmaid's Tale, and I remember really liking it. The author is also a poet, so in addition to having a really compelling story, the writing is just, I don't say attractive because it describes some really horrible things, but the language is really good. It was one thing I appreciated about it. So yeah, TLDR, I'd recommend it.
Cool, yeah. I think it's on my queue right now. So, yeah.
What's up next on the queue?
On this queue here. All right, let's move on to the vote in England. So I'm not huge on like UK politics, But basically, Theresa May, who's the sitting prime minister, called what they call a snap election, which I guess it's written into their constitution or whatever that for whatever reason you can call like an abrupt election out of nowhere or something. I don't know.
Interesting idea.
But anyways, the whole idea
Don't quite
was
have that here.
the whole idea apparently was to capitalize on Brexit and all that, and sort of the rise of conservatives around the globe, and to basically try and win more seats in the, I guess it's, what do they call it there, parliament? Mm-hmm. But it backfired miraculously. She didn't lose, so she went up against Jeremy Corbyn, and she didn't lose, but they lost the majority. So that's a huge deal. And then apparently, I don't know if they can call another election or something, but they're saying like Jeremy Corbyn could wind up as prime minister by the end of the year or in 1 year. I don't know the whole shebang behind that, but regardless, it's a huge win for the left, I guess you could say. Or a huge loss for the right, however you want to look at it.
A big upset.
A big upset, yeah.
Well, that's 2 in a row after France.
Right. Well, yeah. But, I mean, France was really 2 conservatives, though. One was just a crazy, like, alt-right person.
The National Front.
Yeah, yeah.
It's funny, when I learned about the National Front in AP Comparative Politics in high school, like, the National Front was described as fringe.
Yeah.
Like, they never got more than, like, maybe around 5%, 6%, 7%. So it's like, if you double the Libertarian Party success, like, ever.
Yeah.
Like that would be it. But, yeah, now that I know she got crushed, but it's still like 36, high 30s, I think, is the percentage of vote she got. And how it wasn't a fringe party anymore. It was, now it's still relatively new to the scene, but that was like the main runner. Like, with the top. The other one. Anyway, funny how things go.
Yeah. But, Jeremy Corbyn is not a very comforting character either.
Oh, no?
No. So he, like, tweeted, I didn't know a whole lot about him except that, like, the Labour Party is pretty socialist. But he tweeted...
Has it turned into the alt-left? No.
But he tweeted something about Hugo Chavez, basically like, thank you for your policies. You help the poor. Meanwhile, people are running around eating flamingos and anteaters in Venezuela. So, that could be pretty scary for the UK if he actually comes into power, assuming he implements his socialist dreams.
Yeah, whatever side it is, if there's someone making public sentiments or sympathies for like a known dictator, it's like, oh, that's a bad sign.
Yeah. You mean like Bernie did with I think he did with Castro?
Castro?
I think he did. He
did?
Yeah, he did. Pretty sure he did.
You know what? Don't quote me. It's been a while ago. But
I'm pretty sure
he said
did.
a lot.
I'm pretty sure because I shit on him.
So.
Yeah. But yeah, that's always just so crazy, man. I mean, not only is it a dictator, but it's a dictator that's basically like run his country into the ground, or at least his policies have. I guess the whole Venezuela thing didn't happen immediately until after he was, gone or whatever. But it's obviously those socialist policies, that have contributed to it. So, yeah, I mean that's scary.
Yeah, relative to what we're used to here, that would be a very radical change and pretty damn scary. Almost like you sympathize with all the Red Scares and. Yeah, no, it sounds pretty miserable.
And see, I think that's the biggest, or one of the biggest dangers with like this whole, sort of, I guess you call it the alt-right movement, or just super right-wing nationalist, whatever you want to call it. That's where the danger is, like, you get that, and then obviously people will eventually not like that because it doesn't work either, right? And it just has all these terrible sort of implications with it.
You're talking about people who are originally sympathetic to alt-right eventually will grow disenchanted? Is that what you're talking about?
Somewhat, but I'm more talking about, if a country or just policy or even just like society is taking that direction and then it backfires and fails for whatever reason, what always happens is the exact opposite. So whereas I might be more sympathetic to right-wing stuff just because it tends to be more capitalistic,
or they at least give some rhetorical credence to an idea of limited government.
Yeah,
even though it's a freaking
don't get me
joke,
wrong.
but-
In practice, it's nowhere near that.
Oh yeah,
But the associations that happen are,
Exactly.
with that sort of thing. And so my biggest fear with that is obviously that that ends up not working. So then they go the complete other direction, which is far more dangerous, in my opinion, at least. And you get socialism. So that's scary. It's scary stuff, man. What do you think, Bergie?
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm just all about for whatever's gonna make us more free.
Yeah. Church. Yeah.
Yeah, dude. I mean, it's like I think that's kind of like the cool thing about the Comey thing, because if you're really paying attention to it, it's like he says Trump did some fucked up shit, and Hillary did some fucked up shit, and it's like both arms of the state are doing fucked up shit.
Right.
I think that's the moral takeaway.
Yeah, that's a good point. And it's and everyone saw that too. Everybody was watching this fucking thing.
But did everybody absorb that? Did everybody get that?
I mean, I'm sure people were covering their ears and putting their heads up their asses for some part of that, but
Because it was kind of like
at least the people that are kind of in the middle probably saw both of that. Were like, oh, well, there's a whole bunch of fuckery going on here.
hopefully, yeah.
Yeah, we can only hope, right?
Yep.
All right. Yeah, let's get on to some fun stuff. Let's talk about Ethereum and Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies.
yeah. So this is something that I've been getting interested in lately, and actually playing with. I've actually started developing in Solidity, which is the code that the Ethereum virtual machine runs on. But even before that, it's pretty cool. And the fact that I think why it's noteworthy and worth bringing up is, hey, it hit, like Bitcoin, it hit an all-time high, had a pretty serious correction, and then came back. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if it drops again. Honestly, I'm more of a long-term person myself. I don't know what's going to happen in the next few months. But the technology is really cool. And it's how this smart contract, this programmable blockchain
So you're
technology.
talking specifically about Ethereum.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the main thing that differentiates Ethereum from Bitcoin, for anyone who might not be familiar, Bitcoin is strictly a blockchain technology where it basically sends and receives tokens called Bitcoins. A little more to it than that, but in a nutshell, I think it suffices. The main difference is with Ethereum, you still have the same decentralized data structure, the open ledger. You still have mining, proof of work, although they're going to change it to proof of stake, right, which is actually better. But anyway, you have all the benefits of what blockchain technology can give you, but what they added onto it was it's programmable. And this is where the whole idea of smart contracts came about. So a smart contract, real quick, the classic dummy example is, hey, you want to buy something from someone, you enter into a smart contract that has rules governing payments and holdings, and buyer and seller agree to put it in escrow until one or two things happen. And if it doesn't, the program is what determines where it goes. Anyway, so and then somehow you get to decentralize Twitter, which is one project that some folks are working on. But so there's a lot you can do with a smart contract. But anyway, it's also been making an impact into the financial world. There's been major banks around the world. I think Singapore was the latest to have a proof of concept, basically, of moving their financial assets, storing it basically with a blockchain, a permissioned blockchain, and they've been having phenomenal success. A company called Alpha Point helped the Bank of Scotia, and they just had a first stage of it, and it was successful. I know R3, which is another company out there, helped NASDAQ, I believe it was NASDAQ, pilot a program, and it was great. And to give you an idea of what great means, have either of you ever bought or sold anything on E-Trade?
On E-Trade, yeah.
Yeah.
I have an E-Trade account.
It takes a while. Like the processing, everything has to go through. Normally, like if I make a trade, it's at least a week before I have that cash in my bank account. So
Actually, I've never withdrawn.
maybe
I've just been holding on to
maybe smart.
my stocks, yeah.
But anyway, putting on a blockchain can just overcome a lot of administrative tasks. The clearing houses, which is a big pain for foreign transactions. Anyway, it's one of these technologies that is radical and revolutionary, and it's actually starting to enter into even the mainstream. And so it's fun to theorize is what are the radical implications of this radical technology? Just like with Bitcoin in the beginning, there's a lot of romantic thoughts about it and what it can do. So, but either way, I think it'll make the world for the better. Whether it'll bring the crypto anarcho revolution, probably not, but it'd be nice if it did. We're hoping.
So what are your thoughts on Bitcoin and this? So do you own any Bitcoin or just Ethereum?
Yeah. And it's funny, in fact, my son's first savings account was a Bitcoin account because I was lazy and it was the easiest thing to set up, so I did it.
So what are your thoughts on this? What do they call it? The big fork that's coming up, or the soft fork, or what is it?
Yeah. My understanding, the main complaint with Bitcoin right now is that the size of the network has grown significantly, exponentially, and the way that the miners mine or confirm the transactions, it's slower, and so there are folks who want to speed that up, and I think they're the main ones pushing for a hard fork, which isn't as scary as it sounds. It actually doesn't mean you lose it. It just means that a fundamental thing about Bitcoin is changing. Do you think it's positive or negative? If you think it's negative, it means Bitcoin as a whole is less valuable.
Right.
So they've been trying to get this pushed for a while. Just the different, and I can't even go into detail, different programming of the programming rules of how Bitcoin works to make it more of a easier, more frictionless as a day-to-day how you use cash, you use digital, and using it for multiple transactions. There are downsides to it because why else would there be two sides? I'm not very familiar with them, or maybe just not heard good ones. But anyway, so yeah, man, I think they're both great technologies, and the idea of a fork shouldn't be too scary, given what they're proposing. So yeah, month to month, I don't know what's going to happen. Year to year, I don't know what's going to happen, but long term, I think I'm optimistic.
So are you moving anything around before this fork, or are you just going to kind of hang on and see what happens?
Hang on. Yeah.
I'm thinking about maybe splitting it, going like half Bitcoin, half Ethereum.
I would get your feet wet. I mean, look, if I was half as successful as I sound, I'd be a lot wealthier now. I would at least get your feet wet. I mean, that was finally what prompted me to do it. Is I was getting really excited by working with it, but I just never bought any. Like I had Bitcoin at the time, and I kept saying, whatever, I'll do it next month, or no rush. And then it started going up, and it's like, okay, like I remember Bitcoin, I remember those feelings. Anyway, so maybe my judgment's colored, but yeah. So finally, I think around 200, is when I got my feet wet. I don't have a lot, but.
Yeah.
I'd recommend at least a little. I mean, diversification is good either way, right?
Yeah, totally. But somebody was just telling me, it might be a good idea to do it prior to the fork, just in case Bitcoin goes to zero or something, which is like, I mean, even if it goes to zero, it's not going to stay at zero, right? I mean,
well, I think there's a legitimate concern that, again, it will hurt the price because there is a very vocal community within the Bitcoin developers that is very much against this.
Yeah.
And they've fought, been deadlocked it's been a while now that they've been having this conversation. It's been getting more and more urgent, I guess, as this one aspect of Bitcoin is becoming less and less easy to use.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, and so if those people say like, hey, Bitcoin is now more inferior to what it was, and they want to get out, look for something better. Like I know Dash works pretty differently. I don't know the details, but anyway, I think there's a legitimate concern that if it forks, there could be a price drop because a lot of people don't like it and turned off.
But I'm just saying, even if it drops, if you're looking long term, it's not going to be like a permanent. Well, Bitcoin's just fucked now, right?
Yeah.
I mean, who knows? But it wouldn't seem to me to be that way.
Right. And it's funny. I don't know that Bitcoin will be around in 5 years or 10 years.
Oh yeah.
And so, why would I still allocate a portion of what I consider my savings account as crypto? I used to be afraid, and I didn't buy for a long time because I saw Bitcoin as the first one. And then the next thing I know, a year later, like Litecoin or Feathercoin, there was, I think those two.
Dogecoin.
Yeah, I think that one came a little later.
There's like a whole bunch of those meme coins now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think Dogecoin is gone, but then there's one called like Light Dogecoin.
That was the dog, right?
Yeah. I think there's like a Light Dogecoin or...
Right. And you asked, like, what's the difference in name? Well, it's like some of them, like Litecoin, had technologically it was better. Like it was smarter, it was more powerful. It had some real technological advances. And so I was thinking, shit, man, it took Bitcoin this long to get as far as it did. Now already there's something better, and technology generally goes exponentially. Like you look at computer speeds and computer advancements. So this is only going to get worse. So I was afraid to buy anything because I thought there's going to be something better in 2 weeks or whatever. And anyway, it won't last. And what I found was, even though some of these came out and were better, it didn't crush Bitcoin. And I mean, there are good reasons. Part of why you use something is because of its convenience. And Bitcoin has become degrees more massive, like every year or two. It's far more adopted. So, and people still choose it. They won't just jump ship to the latest and greatest. So I figure as long as I keep my ear somewhat out on the news, stay in touch with what's going on, I'm not afraid that something will catch me by surprise and it'll make one of the technologies completely irrelevant.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where it goes. I mean, do you anticipate it someday being the downfall of the dollar, or do you think that's just wishful thinking?
I definitely had those romantic thoughts earlier on.
Yeah.
No, I don't think so. I think it's a very good tool in our tool belt now.
Yeah.
I think it is the AK-47 of tools, maybe. But anyway. So no, I don't think the Agorist revolution. I don't think I'll see it, and I'm not sure it'll actually happen. But it'd be nice if it did. Can always hope. Do you?
Do I?
Yeah,
dude. I don't know. I'm done making predictions about shit. Because I'm done with the whole. This is the second time. I kind of got away from this argument for a long while, but on this podcast and in a chat that I do with my friends recently, it's come up the whole what is the anarchist answer to this question? How is a stateless society going to look in this regard?
Oh, and that's stupid.
And it's my least favorite question because...
And you get it all the damn time.
Yeah, you get it all the damn time. And it's if you can't provide a satisfactory answer, it's well, the nap is wrong then, apparently. It's okay. I mean, the reason I hate that question is because, number one, it's who the fuck knows? I mean, it's
an unfair question.
Dude, Kyle Wagner knows, dude.
He knows you need the state. The state solves all your problems. It's an unfair question because it's I mean, I can give you a million theories about how it could work, but who the fuck knows? If you asked how is the internet going to work back in 2000,
right?
How is it going to work today? What are we going to do about this problem? You wouldn't be able to answer it. But
and if you could answer 5% of it, you would be a very wealthy person.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's sort of the beauty of anarchy is that, at least ideally, it comes around, things happen spontaneously, spontaneous order. Problems arise, and when you don't have the government, you got to find ways to solve them.
And the funny thing about markets is they tend to be a little more self-correcting than the state. So
yeah, exactly. And so it's, it sucks because then you're like, you basically have to say that you're ignorant,
Right.
at least on that specific problem, and you basically have to say, well, the market will solve it, and then people will say, oh, well, that's just a cop-out.
Right.
That's just a cop-out. It's like, not really, because, I mean, look at all the problems that the state tries to solve, and look how that backfires.
Right.
So the state solutions, it's not any better of an answer to say, like, oh, how are you going to take care of poor people? Well, we're going to have the welfare state, because obviously that's not working out too well.
There's gonna be a law.
Yeah, there's got to be a law. How are you going to solve the drug problem? Well, we'll throw people in rape cages. Well, that's not working out too well. So, that's one reason why I hate that conversation. The other reason is just I'm more of, like, I guess you would call me a deontological libertarian.
Sure.
In that, I think the important thing is to notice what's moral and immoral.
Right.
And, I think the NAP is a great framework for making those decisions. And so I try to look at everything through that lens as opposed to, like, well, what's going to be the most effective way? Because, that sort of utilitarian outlook or consequentialist outlook will get you into some very scary places, I think.
Yeah, depending on what inputs, variables you put in. Oh no, human life. Nah, we're not counting that. We're looking at the greater good. Like, yeah, it can be terrifying. So.
Yeah, so that's I just hate, and I've been avoiding it because normally when you hang out with libertarians, which is who I normally talk about this stuff with, like, that doesn't come up, And sorry, but yeah, I mean, but I also engage in another, like, political chat with a bunch of statists, which is kind of fun, but it annoys me when that shit comes up.
But another way I look at it is, like, how successful am I? Not that I'm particularly successful at converting people, but what arguments do I tend to be more successful with? And yeah, the utilitarian argument, I've never converted someone because of a utilitarian argument. Like, I know that some people found libertarianism through utilitarian arguments. So cool if you make it work.
Yeah.
But yeah, so for me, went from the ethics standpoint,
right. Yeah, I mean, the problem with... Because, I mean, you can make the economic arguments. I mean, that's what the whole Mises Institute is about, right?
Yeah.
The Austrian economics and all that.
And Ayn Rand got into that huge, too, so...
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's definitely a way to do that, and for some people that does work. But, I mean, the problem with it is, like, there is always kind of like a counter-argument for certain things, and, the thing with economics is, and especially as it involves, like, the free market, we don't have... We don't really have examples of, like, completely free markets.
Right.
So it's hard to... And, of course, you can look at certain industries as they've gotten freer, they've gotten better, etc.
Yeah.
You look at something
and you can compare North Korea and USSR.
Right. So you can draw these comparisons, but it's like... if somebody wants to, raise sort of doubts, it's just a little bit more difficult than arguing from the moral standpoint, where you say,
Although it's less personal. Sometimes you use the principles argument and then people get defensive as fuck.
Well, yeah.
So you run that risk.
But the other cool thing about it is you kind of get them to think about things in terms of that instead of just instead of them just assuming that certain things are good. Like assuming like, oh, well, it's a good thing to just give everybody free healthcare.
Right.
Like, that's a good thing. Like, they don't really question, like, why is that good?
Right.
Which is, like, kind of the argument I was having with Kyle before was, like, he was trying to claim that I'm an idealist and he's not. And I'm like, I mean, we can talk about definitions and semantics, but at the end of the day, you definitely have an ideal...
How is it bad to be an idealist? How is it bad to, like, have ideals?
I was wondering that, too.
Yeah. Because the thing is, like, because if you have ideals... then you're not going to listen to, like, you're not going to be pragmatic. You're not going to be, like, rational. You're just, whatever doesn't fit in with your ideals, you're going to reject. But the reality is, I mean, if you have a direction that you're moving towards, you have an ideal. like
Yeah.
by definition, like we're all idealists unless we're just complete nihilists, but even that I think is an
You still have to read a book for that.
Right,
yeah.
right. So I think everyone's an idealist. It's just some people have more
Virtue?
more virtue, but they have more of a solid foundation for their ideologies.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, so what's insinuated by that is those who are the
Or
ideologues.
I guess the word would be more
principles-
consistent. A more consistent ideology, whereas some people it's just like whatever makes me feel
more empirical.
more empirical.
Right. When you say, I think what the claim is that the ideologues will be less empirical. Like they'll not willing to change their mind.
Right. But it's like, it's like even like the statist, even like the consequentialist. That's his ultimate good is like, I don't know, maximizing the well-being for all people.
Right. You got to have a value to start there.
Right. So he's got the value, and then that's what he's moving towards, right? And so it's like, all right, let's at least get to that point where we can state our ideology, so to speak, and then figure out, well, is that the correct ideology?
Right.
Or like, is that one that you really want to hold? Like, where does that really lead you? Like, okay, we can maximize the well-being for everybody, but does that then condone like murdering half the population that causes discomfort for the other? Like, where does this go? You know,
you have to have some way of measuring what your success is worth. There has to be, at the very least, as simple as a pass-fail test. You know?
Yeah.
Just logically. So yeah, I don't understand nihilism, but some folks could argue it pretty well. That's not exactly what
you don't understand what
nihilism. That was a side thought. But anyway,
yeah, well, no one cares about them.
must be exhausting.
Must be. Yeah, I was just about to say that. Great movie.
But have you found for you that you've been tunnel vision, not willing to change your mind?
I mean, I'm sure there are certain cases where I've been stubborn on things. Yeah. But I don't think that's a consequence of principle per se. I mean, yeah, there's certain things where it's like I'm reluctant to like admit that they have like if it's something that sort of like shows how, you know, maybe like privatizing some specific thing did not result in the best outcome.
Right.
I may be more reluctant to buy that argument or to admit that, you know, without like doing like complete research on it and like figuring out, oh, was there a hand of government involved? Which mostly there is, but you know, in that sense, yeah. Whereas like if you give me an example of like government fucking something up, I mean, I'll make sure it's not like a conspiracy theory or something, but you know, I'm willing to buy that.
Sure.
Much more easily. So, but
and for good reason.
Yeah. But I mean, I haven't really been confronted on principle like on the nap to the degree where I was like considering changing my position on that per se. So,
you know what? I have had kind of points in my libertarian being career, whatever you call it.
Your journey.
My journey, thank you. Where not that I like apply the NAP differently. Or it's not that I never lost it as a core value, and I think it still is. But I've almost, oh gosh, words are hard. It's made me think of evolve some thoughts that relate to the NAP. So, for example, in the whole like, is it okay to punch a Nazi thing?
Yeah.
So at first, you know, my initial reaction was no. Like the NAP, you can do anything, even be a racist piece of shit who is advocating for a white ethno-state. If you don't initiate violence on someone else, then, like, sorry, like I could never condone that. And someone brought up an interesting argument that I think has some validity. And then I'll give a real life example of what made me think it has some validity. So, there's some folks, I heard the argument that being specifically a National Socialist, a neo-National Socialist, at the very least that has pretty much built into its party platform ethnic cleansing, like, you know,
Yeah.
and yeah. So the only reason they're not, so that's what they want to do, and they plan on doing it. And you even have Richard Spencer saying, "Oh, do you think your goals could be achieved peacefully or voluntarily?" No, like they know, like they're gonna have to point guns to get this accomplished. So this is a threat. It's a threat. Like it's in the future, but it's absolutely a threat. Like they are saying the only reason they're not doing this now is because they don't have the power. But as soon as they do, you know, they're going to put some nasty shit in action. So, at first, it's like, okay, I get it's a threat. I still don't see why you can punch him. I still didn't quite get it. That gap wasn't bridged for me. So, real life example would be like if you're in a bar fight and it's nasty, it's heated, and the person looks at you and says, "Motherfucker, I'm going to my truck. I'm going to my gun. I'm going to fucking blow you away." Do you have to wait for him to be pointing the gun like right at you before, oh, this is now aggression? Like,
Right.
So for me,
So do you think we should be throwing Nazis out of helicopters?
this is my conclusion. This is my conclusion.
Wait, did Ethan
you-
sneak in?
Channel your inner E.
This is my conclusion. If, when brought into court later, if you can prove that inaction would have led to imminent rights violations against someone else, then no, you shouldn't be able to touch it. Like if you know that, hey, someone's about to, I don't know,
Yeah, but
call the Gestapo to let them know someone's hiding Nazis, I would probably not let that person do that. So
yeah. I don't know, but are you saying that sort of bends the nap around, or are you just trying to figure out how that fits into the nap?
No, I don't feel like I bent the nap. It made me acknowledge that preemptive self-defense can have validity, which is something I thought could not be possible within the NAP context. So that was my latest little.
But see, yeah, but you could call preemptive. What did you say? Preemptive
Aggression.
Aggression, but that's it's still in response to a threat.
Sure.
So I feel like in that case, the initiation of force has already occurred, or maybe not the initiation of coercion, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
That's already occurred, and you're responding to it. You know, like a threat. A threat is a violation of the NAP. If you threaten violence on somebody, that's a violation of the NAP. The question is, what qualifies as a threat?
Right.
You know,
exactly.
is holding certain ideas in your head and advocating for certain ideas in your head a threat?
Mm-hmm. And then even if you decide it is, then there's the whole freaking consequentialist, like the strategic argument.
Yeah.
Still, okay, even if it's okay to punch him, should we? Like, that's an important question to ask, too.
Yeah.
And even if I don't...
Well, I'm not Yeah. I mean,
so...
I think it's okay to be a pragmatist as far as moving towards more liberty. In the sense, as long as you don't violate your principles. So, you have to maintain consistent principles, but then there is a question of what's the best tactic. Is punching Richard Spencer in the face, was that a good tactic? I don't know that it was. I mean, the people that hate, it was funny. People got a laugh out of it. There were some great memes that came out of it. You know, it's certainly the people that knew who he was and hated him got, satisfaction out of it. But then the people that like him or
even people concerned about free speech.
Or people that were, just like, this is, I may disagree with what he has to say, but, I'll die for the right for him to say it. Those sorts of people, you only embolden them, which, I mean, for the people that aren't all right, then I think that's a good thing.
Right.
But then for the people that are all right, now you've sort of empowered them to be more hateful and more like, oh, look, we are under attack by
it empowers Richard Spencer to punch him in the face.
Right.
Like, he would probably love for people to punch him in the face. I mean, he's an asshole, but I think he's smart enough to understand that.
Oh, yeah, he's not dumb.
Well, if he would love it, it's not a NAP violation. Anyone can do it at any time.
Is it consensual?
I mean,
is it consensual?
I don't know. Personally, though, I think it's poor strategy.
I'm inclined to agree.
Yeah, I think it's yeah. I think on the whole, it's poor strategy.
Because
and then hold on, there's the other thing of like Richard Spencer aside, like yeah, Richard Spencer's basically a Nazi, you know.
Yeah, man.
So, but here's the thing: if we say like, okay, it's all right to punch Nazis,
of course,
and then you've got to look at the fact that a lot of people who aren't Nazis get called Nazis, like Milo Yiannopoulos.
Oh yeah,
he got called a Nazi. You know, he's definitely not a Nazi.
Well, he is kind of, hey, round up them Jews or, immigrants and other folks.
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay, fine, but he's not a Nazi. By the definition of the term Nazi.
Yes.
So, if you go around saying, well, it's all right to definitely go ahead and just hit all Nazis in the face, then you bring up the quandary of, well, how do we determine if someone is a Nazi? You know, and even if, who's determining this? And, you know, it's like, I don't know. It seems like a bad tactic all around, just from the standpoint of just Richard Spencer and his message, and just the idea of like punching people you don't agree with. Right. So, yeah, I can't condone it. And also, the idea of like street turf battles, yeah, as a strategy, that's like. When you talk about like the Antifa versus Trumper shit. That's been going on. Yeah, and like I'm just like, dude, y'all need to get lives, man. Like, well, like what a waste of a Saturday. Like, go meet up and just like get like pepper sprayed by the police eventually. I don't know. It seems kind of like a waste of time. Yeah, like what are you really gonna solve? It makes both of them look equally. I want to use the word cartoonish. There's probably a better word to describe it, but it just makes it look silly. And as someone who has through the years had sympathies like for Antifa, I don't know. Yeah, I think I don't know. Confrontation is good. Like I really liked what unfolded after Richard Spencer showed up at the Students for Liberty. Yeah. I think. Again, yeah, publicly saying like, dude, that is not okay. You're talking about Tucker? I'm talking about in general. I think it's adopting a confrontational strategy is probably good. I think at least one tactic. So would you say there's certain ideas that are not even worth debating? I don't have too much patience for flat Earth theory. Okay, I'm with you there. And maybe it's just because I don't find that particularly like dangerous, but or as popular. Dude, I gotta get a flat Earth guy on here for you to debate, man. It'll be. I will just get drunk on your show, dude. It'll be. I don't give a shit, and then dude. Just tell bad jokes. I would. I'm not gonna be a part of that. Whatever, dude. It is one of those things where it's like, this isn't even worth my time to debate. Nor is it going to do anybody any ounce of good, except for you, so you can recline and be high and laugh. Yeah, dude, it would still be hilarious, dude. For you, I'm not interested at all. So, anyways, but no, I'm talking more about like is it should in that scenario of Students for Liberty, should they have engaged Richard Spencer as like in like a debate, or were they right to just throw him out? No, I would say definitely. I would not invite Richard Spencer as a guest to host a debate, and I think there's a very good economic reason why for it. Well, not to necessarily host a debate, but the guy's already there. He's already sort of debating other people, and then Jeff Tucker shows up and says, "Get this fascist out of here," blah blah blah. Right. You know, right. I'm just curious. What is the best, and maybe this is a pragmatic question, but what is the best thing to do there? I mean, so like if you throw him out, then it's like, oh, you're just afraid, you know, they can say you're just afraid to debate him. You're afraid to debate him on his ideas. But then on the other token, it's like, do we have to engage in debate with literal Nazis? Like, is that something is that some, well, but I mean, have to from a standpoint of like, for moving society forward, like, do we still have to be willing to engage with these ideas and put them down, or is it like, is it to the point where it's like these aren't even worth bringing up, giving a platform, right? You know, and so, or and is there is there a scenario where that's even a thing, where it's like there is no idea that you shouldn't give a platform?
Right. I'm inclined to say the battle for ideas, of course, it needs to be happen. I mean, personally, and this is where I think most people are, it's just been won. Some things are generally considered discredited. No one talks about bringing slavery back. Like, no one's talking about, hey, let's have a debate about if, and we could put it in an academic setting. Like, some things, are probably not worth our time.
Yeah.
Obviously, don't make it illegal to have that conversation. Of course not.
No. I'm not talking about that at all. Yeah.
But also what happened at ISFL, it was also slightly unique in that the people who invited him, like there's some group, the Hop Caucus. Anyway, that's a fun conversation later. Anyway, this group that invited Richard Spencer was not part of ISFL.
Right.
They just showed up, but they had a sign that said, "Hey, Richard Spencer at IF." They had a sign basically making it look like it was part of, what was organized.
Right.
And if nothing else, it's kind of a fraudulent statement.
Yeah.
So
right.
So that on top of it, no, I think it was. I mean, frankly, how Tucker phrased it, I don't think could be better. It's like, fascists are not welcome at an anti-fascist conference. You were not invited here.
Right.
And I don't even know if he told him directly to leave, but he called him a loser. So that was fun. But no, and I thought that was good. And frankly, the Students for Liberty folks, we're also the ones paying for the hotel. We're also the people going here. Mm-hmm. And the hotel staff decided that, you know what, this guy, he's a troublemaker, meaning Spencer, no more. So I liked how it went down. I thought that was, again, confrontational. No one threw a punch, which I think would have lost the moral high ground if that happened.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
yeah, I was pleased with that as well.
There's some good YouTube videos of it. Like, yeah, they're like right there at the camera with the cameras. Like, you felt like you were right there. It was intense.
Wasn't there like 20 or 30 minutes of arguing though before that happened or something?
Yeah. So when it came out, there was one video that was at least, I think, 30 minutes. It was long, and then there were edited versions that was just for like, specifically the 30 seconds or the minute and a half that was,
Tucker.
The climax, yeah.
So I think our last item on here is we wanted to talk a little bit about UBI, or Universal Basic Income. So that's basically the idea, and there's a number of theories about how it would be put into practice, but basically the government gives, it's a welfare system where the government gives everybody, basically like an allowance every month that you can at least, I guess, live on, or at least keep yourself alive. And I mean, there's obviously debate on how much money that would be and what it should cover, but basically it'd be everybody gets the same amount of money. And, the idea is that, if you're able to pay for, just feed yourself or feed your family or whatever, then you'll just end up being like a more productive person, and the cost of everything will go down, healthcare, blah, 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 blah.
Tell your job to shove it more easy.
Yeah, I mean, so those are sort of the loose arguments for it. I mean, personally, I just don't like the idea of welfare at all. I mean, government welfare at all.
Yeah.
So people are like, well, look, if we have to choose between this and like the current welfare, then this is obviously preferable. And
what that UBI is, or
that UBI would be. Some people argue that. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I don't know enough about it, and I haven't crunched all the numbers, but I gotta say, like, pretty much probably anything is better than what we have now.
But yeah, it's been in the headlines. Like, I think even Reason had an article about it, but or maybe it was The Economist. But
yeah. So I mean, if you move from if you abandon completely what we have now and move towards that, then I might be able to get on board. However, what are the odds? I mean, how much do you trust the government to actually get rid of all the other welfare and just institute UBI?
Yeah.
And not bring it back and not start up some program because they want to get some sort of vote,
right?
Or some special interest group, has sway over a politician. Right. So it's like, yeah, I mean, in the perfect utopian statist world where we have to have a state, like, yeah, fine, UBI. But
Venezuela's just a few months away.
Yeah, but, in our current situation, I don't trust any government program. So
yeah, no, that's reasonable. I guess the arguments are that a UBI would be less, maybe like day-to-day intrusive, like it's less of the ginormous encyclopedia books of nanny state like regulations on how it all works, anything from piss testing to whatever, and that also, because this in theory is more efficient, it will in the end also be even a little cheaper as opposed to what we're paying now. I think that's like some of the arguments I've heard, and I haven't looked into it. I have no idea if it's true or not.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I agree with you. I don't want either.
Yeah.
But
I guess the other argument is that once automation starts ramping up,
that's what Mark Zuckerberg was talking about.
Yeah,
right?
and like so, first it's going to be like the menial labor jobs. Those are just going to be done by robots, and then I mean even like our stuff. Programming, eventually that might be just computers programming.
Doesn't every time you see a Wix commercial on YouTube, doesn't it just kill you a little, like, no, don't do it?
Right.
Anyway.
But yeah, I mean at this point it's like Wix can't do shit compared to like what we can do, but
right.
But still, I mean it's definitely an indicator of where things are going, and it's like at some point literally everything except for the maintenance of the machines and the programs that are doing everything.
Right.
All the jobs will be gone. I mean, even in like, people are concerned about like the blue collar people, but even in like the financial world, like all the stuff stockbrokers are doing, technology and like software is getting so good that like they're going to be out of jobs too. So like these people that are living in like, penthouses in New York City, they're going to be fucked too. So it's like
machine learning and AI. Yeah.
Right, man. Yeah. So like once that really starts ramping up, the idea is like, it's going to happen so fast that people aren't going to be able to move into other sectors. It's not going to, like they're saying, it's not going to be like, with the invention of the car where it's like, okay, now the people that are making carriages can shift over to the car industry. So their argument is like, this is going to be a completely different beast. It's going to happen too fast. And you're just going to have a shitload of poor people. And like not the wage gap, the wealth disparity is going to be like just astronomical. And it's like, okay, like I can kind of see that, but at the same time, it's like you don't know what it's going to look like when that happens. You don't know like what jobs are going to happen. You don't know what wealth is going to look like anymore. Like wealth could be Bitcoin. Wealth could be, could shift over to like artistic things, like when we don't need to produce, coal anymore, or we don't have to produce like, everything can be 3D printed. Like we don't.
Yeah, man.
We don't. Then we don't.
Solar powered.
Yeah. Then it's like, what are we going to value at that point? It's like, I think people are trying to play Nostradamus a little bit too hard, and I'm not on board necessarily yet with that idea. So,
well, isn't there a country that just said they would move ahead? Wasn't there
with
like
UBI?
Yeah, like Denmark or a Scandinavian. I want to say one of the Scandinavian close countries.
That'll be an interesting experiment.
Yeah.
I mean, they're already like super socialist as it is, so it's
yeah, I think some of them are, but what's interesting is the common misconception about them is, even from Bernie to, I don't know, a lot of liberals and conservatives, is that, they're socialist countries, but when you even have the economic freedom rankings come out by, like, was it Heritage Institute?
No, they're at the top, yeah.
The U.S. is below a good number of them, so, yeah.
Yeah, well, no. When I'm talking socialism, I just mean in terms of the welfare state, not necessarily in terms of like economic regulation and all that. They already have like, huge welfare systems in place, so people are kind of already on board with that. So, but hey, look,
they have a much freer market and a much bigger welfare state.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'll be interested to see what
and
happens.
they're not paying
with that.
for an empire.
Yeah, that also helps, right? It also helps to have like a homogenous population that doesn't have any racial conflict either. Not to say that we
Yeah.
should move towards that. I'm just saying that.
You're gonna say, "Whoa!" No, just kidding.
No, I'm just saying it definitely is a benefit in that regard. So, yeah,
I don't know. White people are scary.
white people are scary, but so are everybody. Everybody's scary to me. I'm just scared.
Yeah. So
Yeah. Well, I think that's all we have for today, man.
yeah. So until next time, check out libertariancountry.com. We've got T-shirts over there, and if you enter in the code PRL or the code PRL podcast, you will receive a 10% discount. And also, we always accept articles over at thedailyliberator.com. So if you have something to say, just send it over to us on the website. And until next time, live free
Or die.
Statism's footprint is the blood that is shed, drenching the flags on the tax bombs in red. Poisons by a few at the expense of the many. So do the gods in the death machine. You can't justify killing by economic gain. For God, country, and democracy, you can put freedom in gunpoint in a foreign land. You support the troops, then bring them home. I believe that you will do the best for you. And I believe that we have the power, have the power. I hate the state, and I know I'm a slave. We can make a break the power, break the power. Society owes individuals nothing more than non-interference with natural rights. Once a virtuous person fully comprehends the non-aggression principle, the violence in the state becomes obsolete.